Therefore it says, wake up, sleeper. Get up from the dead. Christ will shine on you. So be careful to live your life wisely, not foolishly. Take advantage of every opportunity because these are evil times. Because of this, don't be ignorant, but understand the Lord's will. Saints of God, my eyes have seen the glory and the coming of the Lord. He's trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. I see him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dew and damps. I can read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His day is marching on. Hello, welcome to Conversation with Faith Leaders. My name is Dr. Brandon A.J. Davis, and I am the founder and the host of Conversation with Faith Leaders and Content Writing Services. And I also have the privilege of serving as the 30th Senior Pastor of the historic Campbell Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Bluffton, South Carolina. Today, I'm proud to have with me a great panelist of thinkers, persons who are involved in church affairs, ministry, the academic institution, social justice activities, writers, and profound thought thinkers in their own right. I'm glad to have with me Robert Jones, who is the author of the newly released book, Reclaiming a Faith and Nation After the Christian Turn Against Democracy, and that is Dr. Robert P. Jones. I also have with me my beloved uncle and pastor of the First African Methodist Episcopal Church in Los Angeles, Dr. Timothy Tyler. And we have that courageous and prodigious thought thinker, and that is Dr. Damon Richardson, who is the founder of UrbanLogia Ministries and is a professor in his own right. I'm glad to have them with me today. We sincerely apologize for the technical difficulties that we had today, but this is going to be an amazing conversation. And as my professor would say, the devil is in the details. So help me welcome to the stage Dr. Robert Jones, my uncle, Dr. Timothy Tyler, and my friend, Dr. Richardson. Hey, guys, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Listen, I'm glad that everyone is here. We are missing Dr. Tiffany Lloyd, but she may be experiencing some issues that we were experiencing here on my end, but we are going to get started with this conversation. And I want to make sure that everyone that is viewing understands that the technical difficulties, they happen, but please stay with us. This is going to be a great conversation. All right, so I'm going to get started with our first question. I'm going to direct it to Dr. Jones, and that is, Dr. Jones, what do you believe is most threatening to American democracy today, and what responsibility do communities of faith have in strengthening the moral foundations necessary for democratic life?
Oh, we're going to come in hot.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. Well, look, so I've got a new book coming out called Backslide. And so that gives it away, I think. I think one of the biggest challenges we're facing in American democracy is unfortunately coming through churches. And I should say specifically through white churches. And so, the book is really about we're experiencing, kind of democratic backsliding. But that word backslide is something I grew up with as a Baptist in the South. And it was about losing your faith, right? Falling away from the faith. And I think that's what we're seeing is this really an abandonment of commitment to democracy among the white Christian churches that is the primary vectors of threat that we face today to our democracy.
Dr. Jones, the folks that are watching live, they are able to hear the echo, and so they're not able to get your response. We're going to switch over to Dr. Richardson to respond to the same question. If you can take a look at what's happening on your end, maybe that can help us.
All right, I'm going to try one more time to pop out and pop back in. All right.
Okay, you sound great right there. Whatever you just did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Whatever you just.
I moved a little further away from the
when I
mic.
removed, hold on one second. Talk to me now.
I moved a little further away from the mic. Is that better?
Well, when I removed Dr. Richardson, the echo went away. But when I bring him back to the stage, the echo comes in. So the devil again is
somebody's
in the details.
Conspiring. That's right.
And the people that are watching live, they are saying this is much better. So Dr. Richardson, can you hear me still?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Dr. Jones, let me hear you speak again.
All right, try it again.
Yeah, that echo is back. Dr. Richardson, I think you might be the one that's chosen. If you can come out, I apologize. If you could come out and come back in and maybe use just the built-in speakers for your MacBook, maybe that might be the culprit.
Okay, I should go out and come back in?
Yes, sir. And your fans are saying the echo is back.
All right. Let me.
Yes, sir.
Somebody said because I'm a Cowboy
fan. Your fans are putting it on you.
All right.
Okay, Uncle Tim. All right, let's get back to the show.
I'm almost afraid to talk.
Listen, you're fine now.
I don't want to get put out.
No. Uncle Tim, same question, and let me just go ahead and spotlight you. Same question. What do you believe is most threatening to American democracy today? And what responsibilities do communities of faith have in strengthening the moral foundation necessary for democratic life?
I think that the most threatening thing to American democracy today is a building up of apathy and fear.
Yes,
and
sir.
I think that in line with what Dr. Jones is talking about in his book and in his work, I think that the white church, the evangelical church, has played a part in fanning up that fear. And so I think that the role of faith and the role of especially the Black church in today's society is to do the same thing that we did when our foreparents were alive, is to engender courage and strength, and to continue to remind people that the same way in which God worked in the past, God can work in the present. And so I think that's going to be important for us as we try to strengthen and save and have some semblance of the life that we want to have.
Yes, sir. I'm going to bring in Dr. Richardson. Dr. Richardson, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, there is an echo, but you sound pretty good. I may have to figure this out from a different perspective. But let me ask you the same question. What do you believe is the most threatening to American democracy today?
I think the most threatening to the American democracy today is the erosion of the legitimacy of losing. The fact that we are seeing in the public square the idea of losing as illegitimate is a problem. So when one side loses and then it says, well, the election was stolen, and it cannot, like, just imagine that we have a sitting president and people in that administration that just can't honestly say that the election in 2020 was legitimately lost. And so what that sets up from a democratic standpoint is the attacks on political opponents. It just completely destroys democracy. Democracy is intended to survive disagreement. But what we're looking at in terms of this extreme practice of politics is one where if you disagree, you get politically assassinated, or one party weaponizes itself against the other. And so now, if you are, for instance, if you vote Democratic or you are a Democrat, for instance, it can be looked at as essentially not just a party of opposition, but they can look at you essentially as a hate group, or because they simply disagree, right? So it's this whole legitimacy of losing that's eroding. And then not only that, but I just think also the erosion of accepting facts-based evidence, right? So people feel the need to well, not simply just disagree, but I think they disagree in the face of evidence, and truth just doesn't matter anymore. And that is dangerous to a democracy, because at that point, you can get on and say whatever, and your echo chamber, your silo, your tribe, or whatever it is, supports that in spite of the evidence, in spite of the facts. So these are the kind of things that definitely threatening democracy and by and large Christian nationalism, hands down.
So throughout, and I'm gonna jump right into our second question. I want you to stay right there. Despite throughout the church, American church history, community faith have stood at the forefront of movements for justice, while also at times providing theological justification for injustice. In this present moment, how can church and faith communities recover a public witness that is rooted in truth, humility, justice, and love, without becoming captive to partisan politics or ideological loyalty?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I'll answer quickly. One, we've got to be honest with the past, right? So there have been significant misrepresentations of Christianity in American history. I mean, there's a complete through line from the period of the invisible institution and American Christianity all the way through Reconstruction, and then when they support ideas that are incongruent and inconsistent with Scripture and historic biblical Christianity.
Yeah, well, I really love that conversation about truth, because I think that's at the heart of the matter. You know, again, growing up, I remember, you know, we had choir musicals that were around that verse of "You will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." And yet we see this real abandonment of truth, and you know, it's notable that this president has made denying the results of the last election an article of faith in order to serve in this administration. Like, you have to be willing to go before a Senate hearing and not be able to tell the truth, and your willingness to evade and to even lie is a criteria for being appointed. And these are people who in other places would say, oh no, you know, Christians are all for telling the truth. And yet here we are, you know, in this very public way, really being willing to abandon the truth. So I have a whole chapter actually called "No True Christian" in the new book, and I'm really wrestling with this dilemma of, like, how can it be that supposedly, you know, the president's appealing to all these white Christians, can demand an outright lie as condition to be appointed to some of the highest offices in the land, and that just goes by as something that's really okay to do. But I think it's a perversion, that kind of outright perversion of truth. I think that is the very dangerous thing, because it is like really a test of fealty and a willingness to compromise one's own moral integrity, right, in order to access power. And, like, you know, that's really the depths of corruption that we're looking at. And I think for Christians, like, if we can't stand up and say, look, anyone who claims the name of Christ, anyone who claims the name Christian, has to be willing to stand up in the most basic way for verifiable truth. And when they don't, we've got to call them out, because if they're willing to do that, if they're willing to lie and evade the truth on something small to get access to power, then when they do get access to power, you can bet that truth is going to be nowhere to be found in their future actions when they actually have their hands on the levers of power.
Uncle Tim, first of all, let me pause for a second. We want to welcome Dr. Tiffany Lloyd. She has made it to the conversation. Everybody, let's welcome my sister. She is a collegiate professor. She is the founder and the host of Justice in Jesus, and she and I have done many of these conversations together. And so, Dr. Tiff, I'm glad that you were able to join us today. But before you respond, I want to ask my uncle, Dr. Timothy Tyler, about that persuasion perversion. How people want us to believe a certain script about democracy and how people want us to believe a certain ideological concept about the role of the church. And I want you to talk about real quickly about how your work as a pastor and social justice advocate, one who is being on the floor with members and community persons fighting it out for justice. Talk about that perversion and that persuasion of what folks think church is and the role of the church.
Thank you for that question. And first of all, I'd like to say that we're using a lot of words today, restore, recover. And when you use words like restore and recover, it assumes that you had it at one time and then it went away. That's not the case. And, even Dr. Damon talked about this thing about people believing lies. Well, Black people have been lied to for centuries. The biggest problem we're having now is that white people are doing to white people what they always have done to Black people. And it is a problem now. And so you talk about the work that we've done and the work of activism. One of the biggest projects we had in Denver was fighting to get justice for an unhoused man who was killed in the sheriff department. And wasn't
that Spencer Booker's brother?
Spencer Booker, Reverend Dr. Spencer Booker's brother, Marvin Booker. And I'm always reminded, we were in court one day, and one of the sheriff deputies was being questioned by the lawyer, and the lawyer said, "Didn't you get charged in another case with lying because over a case like this where you were lying and you didn't tell the truth about your role?" And the sheriff deputy said, "I was not charged with lying. I was charged with departing from the truth." And
oh my!
And so, and this is how people parse their actions and what they do. And so I think that the fight for white Americans, is somehow to get back to this democracy that they knew and this truth that they lived in, and the insideness that they benefited from being either a Republican or a Democrat. Black people are still fighting to be free from the slavery that both Democrats and Republicans had a role in. And so I think that we have to always be reminded that we're not fighting to get back to something. We are still fighting to see something that we've never seen before. And so that makes our burden that much heavier in this tragic time.
Let me ask Dr. Tiff. Dr. Tiff, how can churches and other faith communities recover a public witness?
I think first of all, thank you all for having me. I apologize for being tardy, so I respect everyone's time. It's final exams, so everyone is so concerned all of a sudden about their grades, but we're moving on. One of the things that I think that the church and the community is that we got to stop chasing political and media clout. Sometimes leaders only come when there's a camera or when they're getting something in return, right? And so we have to focus on that quiet, steady service. And it shouldn't always, one thing that I think that the church has to do a better job at is being proactive instead of reactive. It seems like a lot of times we're always responding to something that has happened when we need to use that quiet, steady voice, and we have to amplify the voices of the poor, the hurt, and the overlooked before speaking up. And so I think that that's one of the major things that the church needs to do.
Dr. Richardson, unmute your mic. And I want to ask you a question. Can you respond to what Dr. Tiff just said?
Absolutely. Being proactive instead of reactive. Absolutely. I mean, and I think one of the ways to do that is that the church needs to it needs to find its prophetic voice. What we're finding are Christian leaders who are content with photo ops and sitting at Pharaoh's table rather than standing in the open court and confronting the powers and the systems and the structures that are oppressive. That's the position, the ecclesial position of the church. That is what the church's public witness is supposed to be. And I find it ironic that what we're seeing in terms of leadership culture in broad and general society, that we're seeing that same type of cowardly leadership culture in the church, right? Either people are trying to protect their brand, or they're trying to remain neutral or silent because they're afraid of backlash, this, that, or the other. Let's just be clear. This is not Christian. It's cowardly. And it is not the prophetic voice that God has called the church to. So I fully agree with Dr. Tiff. We've got to be proactive in the way that we deal with issues and not simply reactive. Reactive is the position of essentially being a spectator, if you will, or somebody watching. We should be in the game. We should be leading these conversations in ways that do bring glory to God, and ways that are holistic to all that the gospel entails. It's orthodoxy, it's orthopraxy, and it's orthopathy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And
Yeah. Can I just say this one thing? I also think that we need to trade these empty slogans for real boots on the ground work in the community. Because a lot of people, and there are some churches and some leaders, they talk a good game, but when it is time to show up, sometimes we only show up for when a story is popular, when something is gaining the news. But what about the issues that go on in the community that doesn't get any traction? So I think that one of the major problems that I see is that we have all these empty slogans, but nobody is doing the real boots on the ground work.
Nephew, go ahead, Uncle Tim.
Can I also say that I think that when you're reactive, you're just kind of always responding to a situation.
Right.
But when you're proactive, you're responding to systems. You just wake up assuming that something bad is going to happen even before it happens. But we have to continue to speak to the systems in our communities and in our world that cause those things to happen. And so I agree with Dr. Tiff that we have to be proactive, and that's speaking to systems as opposed to reactive and just looking for the most popular situation.
And you know what? The sad part is that too often people who are trying to find their place in, ministry and serving in community engagement type work, they are looking for something to do, and then they jump on the mundane stuff, and they never deal with the stuff or the root center of issues. Or they will see what's going on in their communities, but because of popularity or because of, the people that they pass or the people they work with, they don't want to rock the boat. But this kind of work, and I know Dr. Richardson has talked about this on his own podcast, if you're going to do ministry, do ministry. And to understand ministry is to understand that ministry is active and is at times risky. And at times it causes for a confrontation with people who don't want to hear the truth. And you don't spend time fighting the people that don't want to hear the truth. You spend your time fighting the issues at hand, and you just have to relegate those persons who don't want to hear the truth to where they belong. And that's the balcony overlooking it all. Yeah, we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to direct the question next to Dr. Jones.
Praise him with a violin.
Welcome. I'm Alphonse Allen, the senior pastor of Allen Temple AME Church.
And I'm personal injury attorney Blake Maislin, partnering together to bring you the Allen Temple broadcast.
Allen Temple, reaching the city one soul at a time. Every Sunday morning at 8 on the CW Cincinnati.
And now we're inviting you to join us.
Every Sunday morning at 8 on the CW Cincinnati.
Jones is the author of several books, of which I'm proud to say are sitting on my bookshelf. And as an adjunct professor at Simmons College in the Department of Religion, his books is on my recommendation list of books you ought to read. Books like Hidden Roots of White Supremacy and the Path to a Shared American Future. Books that came out during the pandemic that got a lot of people in trouble who was talking about it. White Too Long, The End of White Christian America. These books have gotten some folks in trouble, but it's good trouble, because here's a white man talking about the Southern Baptist Church when in the pandemic, the Southern Baptist Church stayed on social media and the front page with some of the buffoonery that they had going on. But his new book is coming out, Backslide, Reclaiming a Faith and a Nation After the Christian Turn Against Democracy. Dr. Jones, I want to put you in the hot seat, and I want you to talk to us real quick. How can we move beyond viewing democracy as the responsibility of the marginalized communities and toward a shared national commitment to human dignity, equal justice, and the common good?
No, it's a great question. I hope I'm going to keep getting in some good trouble, and appreciate the company I'm in today. And I want to go with something Dr. Tyler said. I think it's exactly right that, one of the things that we're seeing is suddenly many white Christians going, oh, wait, what's happening, right? We can't just kind of pretend like things can kind of go on as usual. And suddenly, the guns are metaphorically and literally trained on us and white Christians, which aren't really used to that. So I think we are moving to a place, and I hope one role the book will play is, particularly in white Christian circles, is saying, look, it is time to stand up, right, with Christians of color, our Black brothers and sisters, our Latino brothers and sisters, and because we all have an interest here, right? And it shouldn't be on the shoulders, of Latino communities. It shouldn't be on the shoulders of African American communities, and we all have an interest in standing up. And frankly, I'm really saying in this book that if we don't, a few years from now, we may not have much to build with, right? It may be all kind of torn in shambles down around our feet. And I guess the last thing I'll say is that I also think it is absolutely right that, it's not just going back to something, because at best in this country, we began to have something that you might call a liberal, inclusive, pluralistic democracy at best after the Civil Rights Acts in 1964 and 1965, at best. All right. So that means most of our history, we've had nothing resembling what we like to give lip service to, right? A kind of pluralistic democracy. And we're really going to have to figure out, what does that really look like? Do we really mean it when we use those words? And are we willing to put ourselves on the line to kind of bring something about? And I think it's exactly right. Not just something that we've only partially ever seen, right? Something we really are going to have to implement, and it's going to be a new thing, not something we're just kind of dragging back from the past as if we ever had it. Yes,
sir. Let me hot seat this real quick, Dr. Richardson. If you will unmute yourself, I'm going to put you in the hot seat.
All right.
This same question. How do we move from beyond organized communities having to fix everything when it comes to dignity, justice, and common good?
Well, we've got to, I think we need to look at two things that we have as Christians at our disposal. One, our shared view and understanding of the Imago Dei, which is where all humanity finds its dignity rooted in, that God has made all humanity in his image and likeness as his representatives. The other thing is the multicultural plurality that we find in the body of Christ. Ephesians 2:14 through 16, Galatians 3:28 speaks to that, right? And so the fact of the matter is that from a democratic standpoint, while we ought to be able to share in this project of decisioning, even when we have different beliefs, even when we come from different ethnic backgrounds, so forth and so on. No one person particularly has the dominant voice. The other thing I think that we can learn from what we find in Scripture is that none of those distinctions in this national, multi-ethnic vision and body that is the church, none of those differences are dissolved. They are sharing in, as it were. My apologies, it's my dog. They are sharing, as it were, in the body. And yet bringing all of their cultural distinctions and differences, so forth and so on, and we can learn from that, and we can utilize that as a way to inform this democracy as an experiment or as a project to push for that. Because if we lose that, whose voice becomes dominant? Who gets to say and to control what should be or what should not be, right? So pluralism is something that we should be fighting for. And I think one of the best ways to fight for that is what we actually see in terms of the body of Christ, and the fact that our dignity doesn't come from being American. Our dignity comes from the fact that God has afforded us humanity, and that humanity doesn't matter if you are a Christian. Dignity comes from creation, not from the cross. The cross actually affirms that dignity. It does not grant it, right? And so in that way, we can disagree with others and still respect them and still see them as dignified persons. And what we are seeing being practiced today destroys that because it grants American identity to white people and primarily to white men. And so therefore, if you are a Muslim or if you are Black from anywhere in the African diaspora, you are not welcome here, right? And so that undermines democracy, and it undermines what we actually see in God's word.
Okay, here we go. So when it comes down, Dr. Richardson, when it comes to who is responsible for fixing the issues? What is your response to persons in the white community going to put it on us?
Yeah, so it's all of us. It really is all of us. But I would say that white evangelical Christians need to step up and own the onus of that prophetic voice and pushing back against, for instance, here's a good example. I posted the other day about, I think it was Chance the Rapper, who made a post about why doesn't the church, and I get what he meant in general, use Sunday morning to address things like white supremacy, Christian nationalism, so forth and so on. And of course, many people got on saying, oh, well, they do at my church, this, that, or the other. But that wasn't his point. His point is that by and large, why is this not more common? Why don't the majority of churches do it, right? And then there were others who were on saying, well, that's not our role. That's not what we should do. And I push back to say is that we preach against all kinds of sins, but it just seems like the sin of racism, all of a sudden, it's not the time to do it on Sunday morning. And I think that's the problem. I think preaching against white supremacy, white Christian nationalism, and these things is just too much like looking in the mirror. And so the buck gets passed on to those who actually care, because we understand the injustices that are involved, and we are on the receiving end, the recipient end of those injustices. And until more professing believers, until more of the church in the West and in America sees this as our responsibility to address the evils of systemic racism and injustices, and this is not just for black Christians or whatever. And then the bad part, and I'll land here, the bad part is that when we end up addressing these issues, then we get charged with idolizing our blackness or elevating it above Christ, as though caring about the dignity of Black humanity is somehow at odds with our Christian faith. And so I would say that more of the onus and responsibility lies with white Christians. We've been championing this cause for several hundred years. Like, they need to get involved. Moreover, they need to be part of this fight.
Dr. Tiff, now this is the stuff that you deal with on your mic for me. Dr. Tiff, this is the stuff that you deal with on your end, on Jesus and justice and Jesus, excuse me. This is the kind of stuff that you get into with pastors like Dr. Freddie Haynes at the Friendship Church. So now, what is your response from both the academic community and from the church community? Because anyone who knows you are a church girl. But you also a church girl who is profoundly ingrained in the work of social justice. How do you deal with the issue of who's at fault for the destruction of American values? And when it comes to putting it on Black community and Black preachers, how bad the issue of it ain't our fault because we didn't create it. Deal with the conversation.
Well, First of all, I'm very blessed that Pastor Frederick Douglass Haynes at Friendship West Baptist Church is my pastor and who is running for Congress. And hopefully he'll be the next congressman representing District 30 in the state of Texas. I have a lot to say. First of all, let me just say, textbook definition for democracy is rule by the people. But let's be clear, democracy should not be a tool only to address marginalized communities. It should be the power grid for the entire country. I want to go back to something. When you look at politicians, there are three types of politicians. You have a delegate, a trustee, and a politico. A delegate is a politician who votes for legislation, for bills based on their constituents' best interests. The trustee votes for things based on their own moral beliefs. Sounds familiar? Well, I can't vote for same-sex marriage or abortion because of my personal belief, but you could send innocent Black people to prison. We could put people on death row, and that's a whole nother story for another day. Let's go back. And then you have a politico. A politico is a combination between a delegate and a trustee. So you have politicians who will say, well, I'm voting based on my moral convictions and my faith and my God. Well, I don't know what God that you serve, because if you're talking about you're pro-life, as my pastor said, you have to care about the person from the womb to the tomb. You can't say, well, I'm not in favor of things like abortion, but you want to cut free lunches for marginalized communities. Let's go back to when my brother just spoke, and he couldn't have said it best. When we talk about people who talk about, well, that's not what the church is for. I'm paraphrasing what he said. Let's go back to when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, January 1st, 1863. When it was signed, we know the story about everybody here in Texas was still slaves until June 19, 1865. We already know that. But let's be clear, slaves were not paid. Slave owners received their reparations. And so Lincoln had a very racist vice president by the name of Andrew Johnson, the first president to ever be impeached by the House. They did the 40 acres and a mule. For those who say Black churches should not get involved, well, Lincoln didn't think so. He had General Sherman to meet with a group of pastors in Georgia to look at this land, over 400,000 acres of land. I think they went all the way from like Oklahoma to Florida, where they would get 40 acres and be loaned a mule. But what happens? Lincoln gets assassinated, and Johnson decides that he is going to cancel the order. And so when we look at things like that, I mean, it just talks about, this is just one of the basic reasons of why African-American pastors were involved, because they knew the power of the Black church, ladies and gentlemen. While we celebrate, a New Year's service, it's more than just New Year's service. It was about our people, our ancestors waiting and praying and crying and hoping that they would be free. And one thing I will say, and y'all didn't ask for all this, but I'm gonna say this: Black folks, we gotta stop acting like a guest a guest at a table that we already built. And we have to learn how to use our voices, and not just use our voices when we get angry. We have to go out and vote. We do not qualify to complain about anything when you refuse to go out and vote and make a change. So y'all didn't ask for all that, but I just,
I love every bit of it.
You had me.
Uncle Tim, this is the kind of stuff that you like to. This is your good trouble. Uncle Tim, can you follow up to what Dr. Tim just said? And I'm going to go to our fourth question, but I just want to get your perspective on what Dr. Tim just said.
I agree that we do have a responsibility to step up to the plate and do all that we can. I want to just say that I question this notion of America being broken and having lost its values or whatever. I think that America is operating very smoothly the way it was created, and there's nothing broken about it. It is doing what it was designed to do, and it's serving the people that it was designed to serve. And I think that the fight is ours to always fight to be included in a place that wants to exclude us. I believe, and I do celebrate that we not only do we deserve a place at the table, but we help to build the table. And America is constantly pulling the table from under us. And so I think we have a responsibility to fight. Earlier, you asked the question about let me get it right. You asked about having to marginalize people, having to fight for this so-called democracy. And I think the problem is the reason why we continue to see it as our responsibility to fight is because we don't even trust progressive white people. We were asked to trust white women. White women turned their back. If white men benefited from Trump, white women helped him. And so we're always being stabbed in the back. And so we always see it as our responsibility as marginalized people to fight for our own freedom, to take our own liberty. And I'm afraid we're going to be like that until we can feel like we can trust those who say they are our allies, and then they constantly tell lies to us.
So here's the fourth question I want to ask, and I'm going to pose it to Dr. Jones first. The fourth question I want to throw in there is this: what do each of you see signs of hope? Where do each of you see signs of hope today? And what gives you confidence that our nation and our communities can move forward together toward greater justice, reconciliation, and a democratic renewal? Dr. Jones?
Yeah, well, I tell you, it's I have to work at it sometimes to find hope, but I do think it is. I think it was James Baldwin, who was always saying, look, if I'm alive, right, I have to continue to hope. And I think that's kind of where I'm coming from here. But I think there are some signs of hope. I'm a sociologist by training, so I'll kind of point to some numbers here. It's worth noting it, and we've been talking about voting and action, that matters a lot. I mean, it's really going to matter this fall. Really consequential midterm elections coming up, and so it's worth remembering. If we only look through the lines of kind of who voted and how we're tempted to think that we're living in a 50-50 country, right? 50% supporting this president and the MAGA movement and white Christian nationalism and all of it, and 50% over here. But that's not really what the numbers say. And this is where it gives me some hope. We don't really live in a 50-50 country. We live in something more like a 2/3, 1/3 country. So if you ask people, do you want to live in a country that's made of only Christian people? It's 2/3 that say, no, I'd rather live in a country, a multi-religious country. If you ask people, do you only want to live in a country of people only Western European descent? It's 3/4 of the country says, no, I want to live in a more diverse country, people from all over the world. But what we have, though, is a very dedicated, a very organized minority. So if you ask about white Christian nationalism, right, it's only 30% of the country. that qualifies, right? It's Christian nationalists and the way that we measure it on public opinion surveys. But that 30% has become a majority viewpoint inside one of our two political parties, the Republican Party. It has taken over the white evangelical world. It is 2/3 of white evangelical born again Christians who hold these Christian nationalist views. So, but again, all of them together only make up about 3 in 10 Americans. So that means that twice as many Americans reject that view. But we've mentioned apathy, but apathy is a problem. So getting people to kind of wake up to the moment we're in, getting people to stand up, getting people to organize, getting people to vote. These are all really important things that we're looking at. And the churches, I think, have a really important role to play in all that going up. But it's worth remembering, just as a kind of wake up call, that in the last election, if you really look at the way the votes fell out, Kamala Harris got 33% and some change. Hear me out. Trump got 33% and a little more change, and 34% sat the election out. Right. And so I think we got to remember that like, again, we're not a 50-50 country. It's 50-50 among the 2/3 that voted. But among this other third, we've got many more people who believe in a pluralistic democracy, who want to see a more diverse nation, and want to see, by the way, like, it's not all in the service of democracy, but want to see a Christian faith that has its own integrity, right? And then isn't sort of drug around by partisan politics, and certainly isn't drug to the point of defending lies and delusions in our public life.
Dr. Richardson, you want to respond to Dr. Jones?
Absolutely. Well, I agree with that. And so here's where I find the hopefulness. So one, when I look at, for instance, the Black church, the abolitionist church, I look at the church through Jim Crow and the civil rights movement. Neither iteration of the Black church started out or at any time was majority position, right? And so, but what we do see historically is that they help to move the body ultimately, not just simply over time, but by this consistent pressure. For instance, what was it? March 7th, I believe it was 1964. My date may be incorrect, but that Bloody Sunday, that march across Edward Pettus Bridge did something. It put on national television the ugliness, the dehumanization, the degradation, and the despicableness, the repugnance of white racism. It put it on primetime television, and racist, segregationist, and the like got a chance to see a mirror that showed them that this is the outcome of how we believe, what's in our heart, the policies we support, so forth and so on. My point to say in terms of hopefulness is this, that time won't change anything, but I do have some hopefulness that as the Joe Webbins of the world, the Doug Wilsons, the Stephen Wolfs, and all of these types of persons who are coming out as mainstream voices now, literally giving voice to the curse of Ham and all of this racist ideology that we've been telling people about. Now that that's becoming mainstream again, I think we could be having another Bloody Sunday type moment, because that televising that moment ultimately led to the passing of the Civil Rights Bill in 65, right? And so I think at some point people are going to come to grips with, wow, this really is as despicable as it sounds. This really is crazy. This really is racist. And I think the more people see it and hear it, rather than it contributing to a normatizing effect, I think people are going to discover that it actually is as evil and repugnant as what it sounds like. And I think it just needs to continue to be nationalized and put front and center. And that is why panel discussions like this, books, and all that we are doing in order to continue to pound the concrete and make sure that our voices are heard. Ultimately, I think we strike the right chord, and those who support these ideas and practices are going to be confronted with their own ugliness.
I want to ask this question. This just came to my mind. And Dr. Tiff, I'm thinking of you first, and then I want my uncle to respond. What are you willing to risk for the truth in democracy?
I have the courage to not be liked. I mean, so let me say this. If you are sensitive and you care about the opinions of other people and you are fearful of being attacked, then this is go work for Bluebell ice cream and sell ice cream, because this is not for the weak. When you step out, for every person on this panel that I admire and appreciate and that have brilliant minds, I think one of the commonalities we all have is that we have the courage to not be liked. I cannot tell you how many people, I hate to say this, how many white people have gotten in my inbox and have tried to challenge me, that have been on my page saying that I don't have a real doctorate, that have questioned me. I mean, even when I walk in a classroom at a predominantly white institution, and you know what's sad is that some of the people who look like me question, right, my credentials, but wouldn't dare do that to other people who may not look like me. So I think the thing that I am willing to risk is that I have the courage to not be liked, and whatever comes with that just comes with that, because at some point someone has to do it. And that gives me hope, is that our voice, because your voice, it shapes culture, it shapes laws, and it shapes the community. And let me also say this as I close, is that it's time now for all of us to step up and use our voices, because when you only have a handful of people that's doing the work, only half of the nation is being built. So that's why it's so important.
Uncle Tim, same question. What are you willing to risk? What are you willing to lose? What are you willing to risk for this fight in terms of democracy?
I think I'm willing to risk and I'm willing to lose just being a part of the status quo. You and I belong to.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous. I'm nervous.
You and I'm going to watch it. You and I belong to a very large and powerful institution called the African Methodist Episcopal Church. But
yes, sir.
Our institution and other institutions have, in seasons, have lost their way and have lost that which made them strong and powerful, which was a social justice genetic pool. And I'm willing to risk just the praises of people and getting the power that people often seek, because I think that it is time for us to be fighters for those who do not have the privileges that we might have. And I think that as we risk, I think that the risk, I'm willing to risk not just being a part of my organization. I think that we're going to have to get together and fight with those who have the same passion that we have to fight, whether it's the Democratic Socialists, whether I think about the Black Lives Matter movement. That was a time in history, I was listening to Dr. Damon, when the Black church did not lead, would not lead, and could not lead. And I think we suffered for it. So I'm willing to risk doing going the not so ordinary route so that we can see the victory that we're seeking. And I'm just willing to risk whatever it takes. I believe that the arc of the universe does bend toward justice, but I think some of us are going to have to reach up and help it to bend. And we're not going to be able to do that if we just hold on to what's comfortable for us. And I agree with Dr. Tiff on all that she said. Ditto, ditto, ditto.
Dr. Jones, same question. What are you willing to risk? And I think we can fairly say that much of what you have risked is you grew up in the Southern Baptist Church. And while you don't appreciate where they are politically and socially and theologically, biblically, mentally, all of those terms, I imagine that it has become a little uncomfortable in your own family conversations, with some of your older relatives. So could you articulate what are you willing to risk? I mean, because much of your books talk about it. It talks about the Southern Baptist Church. It talks about, as a white man yourself, it talks about the issues that white society has inflicted on people of color in this United States long before Trump's first term. And before you respond, I think that's fair to say that long before Donald Trump got into the presidency, he was already stoking the flames. The only difference is that, and I think Dr. Richardson and I have watched much of his work. And let me say this of Dr. Richardson. When I go to the barbershop and Dr. Richardson is on the 90-inch TV in the barbershop, and you got barbers talking about African culture and African history, and they're fighting with their friends who are preachers, and I'm just sitting there quiet, and they're cussing each other out, talking about, this ain't the white man's religion. Christianity started in Africa. When I see that, it makes me so like I know him. I know him. But to Dr. Jones, you have risked a lot with your work. So is there anything else you wouldn't risk, or have you all laid it bare?
We've had this phrase. I played sports growing up, leave it all on the field. So I think that's what I've been trying to do. But, honestly, it feels like I have come to this work rather late, as an adult. I mean, took me a while to work my way out of that world and to actually get any critical distance on it so that I could kind of look back on it and go, oh, that's what that was about. Right. And to kind of get, a more accurate view of things. But I've had one of my books banned by Pete Hegseth at the U.S. Naval Academy. I've certainly had plenty of White Too Long was banned at the U.S. Naval Academy. But I have a chapter where I address this at the end of the book. It's called "In Praise of Division," and I'm aiming it particularly at comfortable white Christian people and say, look, we're at a moment in history where if you're going along, you're part of the problem. And it is time to kind of stand up, and it's going to mean drawing some lines that are going to be very uncomfortable. It's going to mean drawing some lines that are going to cost us some friendships, going to cost us some relationships. But what's the alternative? Right. And I think that that's really what I'm calling us to do. And realizing that the only way we're going to have a country worth saving, a church worth saving, is if we find the courage to do that.
Yes, sir. Dr. Richardson.
Yeah, well, I think I'll dig into my alliteration bag, and I'll say that I am willing to risk being mischaracterized, misunderstood, further marginalized, and maligned, and not to make light of it, but the fact of the matter is that you have to be comfortable with rejection. You have to be comfortable not having necessarily a mainstreamed kind of. Again, the Black church was never mainstreamed in terms of the way that we championed truth and justice and this, that, and the other. We were always confronting the majority as a faithful remnant, right? And so I am comfortable as being part of a minority faithful remnant, regardless of color, ethnicity, who have a shared vision of God's word and what it looks like in both faith and practice. I'm comfortable there. I'll also say this, that if a person is concerned about reputation or branding, you're never going to be God's man and God's woman in terms of being counted on to tell the truth consistently, because you've got to worry about your bottom line. And that kind of thinking is just tied into capitalism. right? It's concern for outcomes, for exposure, for risks. And you've got to weigh whether or not you should say this and what is it going to cost, this, that, and the other. I have none of those concerns. And like anybody else, we all want to thrive economically, this, that, and the other. But I have counted myself dead to the notion of succeeding in majority white spaces, or looking at white proximity as the way forward, so that my voice can get platformed, this, that, and the other. I don't, those are not the kind of things that I am concerned with. And I do notice that nothing rewards in this country more than white supremacy. And so when you get voices like Brandon Tatum and these other voices that are willing to to buck dance and do all these different things for the bag, I'm afraid that there are more people who will find that as the template and the way to go. But I'm just willing to take the risk, and like I will go broke, but I will be able to look at myself in the mirror and know that I have all of my integrity and dignity and self-worth, and that I have actually stood as a man of God to tell the truth, regardless of the risks or the outcome. So I feel good about that.
Listen, this has been one of the best conversations I've had in a long time. And I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with our last question. I want to say again how appreciative I am for Dr. Robert Jones, who is the president and founder of the PRRI, the Public Religious Research Institute, and is the author of Backslide. I'm so grateful that he's here, and that I have my uncle, the Reverend Dr. Timothy Tyler, who is the pastor of the famed LA, Dr. Damon Richardson. I want to call him Damon, but Damon Richardson, who is our Afrocentric theologian in residence. That's your new title for this show, dog. I'm going to be calling on you, the Afrocentric theologian in residence. And of course, my friend, Dr. Tiffany, Lloyd, who I just have a lot of affection for, because when she goes at justice in Jesus, she goes at justice in Jesus. Amen. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back.
Recently, God opened the door for J.P. Moore Mortuary and Cremation Services to expand into the Madison, Florida area, allowing us to provide stellar yet affordable services to families in need, families who are looking to honor the life of their loved one in the customs and traditions of our cultural experience. J.P. Moore Mortuary and Cremation Services offers compassionate and courteous service with unmatched satisfaction and a professional staff that can serve your family in a difficult time with dignity. The top 11 reasons why families call J.P. Moore Mortuary and Cremation Services are that we offer funeral services, cremation services. We have an on-premise chapel. We have J.P. Silk Creations, our on-premise florist. We offer grief counseling. We have 24-hour on-call service, at-home arrangements, out-of-town services. We have digital casket display. We offer air flight shipping. And we have reasonable and competitive pricing with a complimentary notary public. Spreading sunshine at the sunset of life. J.P. Moore Mortuary and Cremation Services. The mortician who cares more.
And we're back, and I want to jump into our final question, and that is, if we are serious about building a healthier democracy and a more faithful public life, what is the one value, one practice, or conviction America and the church must recover as we move forward? And I want to direct this question to Dr. Jones.
Yeah, well, again, small one to end with. I mean, I think it may be fairly simple that, we played a lot of lip service to democracy. We played a lot of lip service to, Christian values and integrity and all of that. And I think the main thing, just may be aware, is like, that we have to kind of ask ourselves is like, do we really mean the things that we always love to say? I think it really is that simple. Are we really willing to put our bodies on the line, put our money where our mouth is, to back up those things that we've said we believe in, that we said about who we are on the end? And if you'll indulge me, I thought I would just read a little paragraph at the end, because I kind of actually went at this question at the end about responsibility and what we've got. So I'm going to read just a tiny bit from Backslide here to wrap it up. It's kind of where I ended the book really is say, look, in the end, all we have is our humanity and a sense of responsibility for each other. We must shoulder the terrifying realization that we are the only ones who can determine whether the raw materials in our hands will be fashioned into swords or plowshares. We ultimately decide whether these implements will be used for violence or peace, alienation or community hate or love. Christianity, or Judaism or Islam or Buddhism, becomes in every generation what we allow it to be. If we want our religion to help us kill in the name of a plundering empire, it will oblige. If we want it to assist in caring for the widow and the orphan, it is amenable to that too. But it is we and not the Bible or the church who will determine which Christianity and which America becomes a reality in this world. There is still time until there isn't for those who would answer God's "Where are you?" with an unequivocal "I am here."
Wow. I can't wait to get my book, by the way. I'm so excited. I don't know if that order form goes to you, but all of my books have been signed by you, so we could just find out who's in charge of shipping and handling. I got to.
Oh yeah, we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, I got to have that autographed copy. I got to have bragging rights.
Very kind. Tiff, thank you,
Dr. Tiff. I got to ask you. We're serious about, if we are serious about building a healthier democracy and a more faithful public life, what is the one value, one practice, one conviction America and the church must recover as we move forward?
Yeah, we have to stop asking for scraps and start building our own future. I would also say that we have to take the power back into our own hands instead of waiting for permission. If we want to get something done, we have to do it ourselves. That means build our own stores, build our own schools, build our own communities. And I think that that's the step if we want to have the power.
Uncle Tim?
I think that we're going to have to continue and make an effort to identify with what the Bible would call the least of these, and not fear or feel like that will somehow take something away from us. And so we've got to be truthful with our people. We've got to I heard the word integrity. We must help the people who oftentimes see themselves on the outside. We have to identify with them and help them know that they are every bit a part of this country as anybody else, and that they are every bit a part of the church, and that the church is called to minister to and to give voice to and to protect and to empower. And so I think that if we do that, we'll be on the right path.
Dr. Richardson?
Yeah, I would say the one word is civility. Civility. I think civility is essential for a healthy democracy, because for one, I mean, just think about it. Without civility, we can't come to healthy compromise. We get gridlocked. What we find is increased polarization in conversation. We can't find a way forward because essentially you've got a basic loss of respect for public institutions, distrust of leadership, and this kind of general nastiness that we see coming from this administration is really throwing society into an uncivil disposition, where people don't know how to disagree and even still get along, right? And so we're seeing the church behave in the very same way, and we're seeing that in larger society. And I think this just forces society towards extremes, whereas we're seeing one extreme for MAGA. Hopefully what we don't see is an answer to that that runs to an entirely other extreme, and it starts to punish their opponents, right? And so I think we've got to recover civility if this democracy is going to survive. We don't have to agree. It's fine. You can disagree with me, but we've got to be civil in discourse and public conversation, and we've got to find ways to do that still promote unity and just, again, a healthy democracy, right? And so unlike third world nations where voting could cost you your life, they've got political garrisons in neighborhoods where if they find out how you voted, you could be killed or imprisoned, this, that, or the other. I don't think we're far from seeing those kinds of behaviors happening here, where political opponents are punished. And without civility, that's exactly what would happen. And we've seen this democracy be tested in terms of the so-called checks and balances of government that we used to always say would be a fail-safe against totalitarianism and this, that, and the other. Well, that's only as good as the people. And if people are uncivil and lack courage and are unable to stand up to and hold accountable, those who, like this administration, have run amok, then that, again, democracy just can't work, regardless of what the systems of the government are designed to do. That requires people. So I would say civility at the end of the day.
Yes, sir. Dr. Jones, I want to get your last response to that.
Yeah, well, I just want to say I'm encouraged by conversations like this that are real, that are not flinching from the situation we find ourselves in, that are but I think are also looking ahead and hopeful and calling people to their better angels in this moment. I mean, I think that's what we've got to do, is realize, like, if back to that old quip from the beginning of the country, what kind of a country do we have? Well, we have a republic if we can keep it. And I think that's never been more real than it is right now in our lifetime. And I think the church has got a very vital role to play. I mean, the Black church has consistently played that role. And I just kind of say to my kind of, white fellow Christians, it's especially time and incumbent on us to step up, because I mean, this is essentially, and in so many documentable ways, a dilemma that we've brought the country to. And we've got a particular responsibility to help get the country out of it.
You know what? One of the things that I think that will help people to understand is that where you see there's trouble, you have a responsibility to do something about it. Where there's smoke, there's always fire. And it shouldn't be just the person who saw the fire trying to help to put the fire out. I think everybody has a responsibility in shaping democracy and shaping the country. And you just can't remain on the side because, well, it's not my problem, I didn't create it. You can't be so comfortable that you ignore the realities that are happening. I'm newly assigned, I can't really say newly, but this is my first annual conference. So I'm still somewhat new as the pastor of the historic Campbell Chapel in Bluffton, South Carolina, where the Confederates burned this community down. And the only surviving structure was this church. I pastored a group of people who, in spite of what was handed to them, had a responsibility to speak out, to speak up, and to do something. And one of the first things that they did was created a place of worship for themselves. And it's why I'm AME, it's why I fight for African Methodism. And like my beloved uncle, is why he and I follow his example. Uncle Tim, I follow his example.
That's a dangerous thing, nephew.
It's dangerous. Oh my God, it's dangerous, because people say, "Oh, y'all are talking too much, and you're gonna lose your appointment. You're gonna lose your status." And for righteousness, we have to be willing to give up those temporal things for righteousness. I want to thank all of you. Dr. Tiffany Lloyd had to step away, but I appreciate the time and the work that she put in this conversation. But I want to again thank Dr. Robert Jones for coming again on this podcast and being with me today and sharing his thoughts. I look forward to reading his work. I discovered his work from Dr. John Thomas, the editor of the Christian Reporter for the AME Church. And I bought one book and then I started looking for others, because once you start reading Dr. Jones's work, you can't put it down. I love your style. And you know what? I'm a fan of The West Wing, the old TV show series, The West Wing. Dr. Derek Anderson and I, we talk about it a lot. And much of your writing sounds like what, Aaron Sorkin put in the mouth of Toby Ziegler on The West Wing.
That's high praise.
That is high praise, because you made a reference to a quote that President Josiah Bartlett said, that we need our better angels to do this work. We really do need our better angels to do the work of democracy, social justice, the work of social holiness. And so with that said, I ask everybody this question. Uncle Tim, what does unholy silence mean to you as your closing statement?
Unholy silence to me means, it means death. It means we will die and you don't care. And so I think people need to speak up.
Dr. Richardson?
Yeah, unholy silence is a dishonest attempt to sit in neutrality and not say anything when you should. And in fact, silence is complicity. And we can't, not only can we not afford to be silent, being silent means that we're not using the prophetic voice as a church collectively that God has put us here to be as agents and ambassadors of reconciliation. So we don't have that option to be silent. Mercy and justice, and Jesus said it. Hey, listen, you tithe on a mint and dill and cumin and so forth and so on, but you've neglected the weightier matters of the law. Mercy, truth, justice, righteousness, so forth and so on. And so we don't have the luxury or the the convenience of being silent. We have to speak up, and we've got to do it when it's not popular, when it's inconvenient. Jesus didn't call his disciples when it was convenient. He called them as soon as they had caught the draught of fish, and that was good for business, and they would have had an incredible 4 or 5 months economically. He was like, follow me now, right? That was not convenient, right? And so speaking up is very inconvenient. It will cost all of us, but we've got to use our voices, all of us.
Dr. Jones, what is unholy silence?
Well, amen to all that. So, in the book, I wrestle with the silence of the churches, and particularly predominantly white churches, at many moments in American history. And I basically put it this way: it's like, if we were ashamed when we didn't speak up against slavery, if we were ashamed when we didn't speak up against Jim Crow, if we were ashamed we weren't on the side of civil rights, now's the time to evaluate where we are. And there's this phrase that Dietrich Bonhoeffer used in the German churches in the 1930s called a status confessionis, right? And he meant by that like a time that demanded a response by the church where there was not an option to be silent. And I make the argument that that's the moment we're living in, that we really don't have the option of looking the other way, or if we do, we have become complicit. And so we've got a choice, right? We can either sin or not sin. We can either be faithful or we can be unfaithful. And that's the kind of decision point I think we're in at this moment. So I think that's where I would, respond.
Amen. This has been Conversation with Faith Leaders. I want to again thank Dr. Robert Jones. I want to thank Dr. Timothy Tyler. I want to thank Dr. Damon Richardson and Dr. Tiffany Lloyd for their time, their work, their efforts in helping make this conversation what it is today. As always, I like to end the show with a thought. And before I share this thought, I want to shamelessly plug my Substack, which is Letters from the Pulpit and the Public Square. And I shared this a few weeks ago on my Substack, and I want to share it with you today as I thought it was very poignant to my uncle, Dr. Timothy Tyler, mentioning the work of the AME Church and our work in social justice. Bishop Reverend E. Cassius Ransom understood that the future of the church would never be secured by nostalgia. It would be secured by faithfulness. While heaven remains our final destination, until then, we have work to do. We are called to preach, to teach, to organize, to vote, to serve, to feed, to comfort, to challenge, and proclaim the righteousness of God in every place where injustice seeks to prevail. That is the work before us. That is the burden of social holiness. That is why the church must never retreat from the public square. Therefore, while others may argue, petition, protest, and appeal, we remain clothed with divine authority to declare, "Thus saith the Lord." For how shall then they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things. Romans 10, chapter 10, verse 14. It is precisely because I believe this that I write these reflections in the newspapers, the Christian Recorder, and on my Substack. They exist to wrestle honestly with the intersection of scripture, history, public life, and the moral responsibility of the church in every generation. Again, this has been Conversation with Faith Leaders. I am so thankful to have had our guests for today. I pray that you will be blessed by their words, their thoughts, their inspiration for engagement, and that you will share this podcast with someone else. Thank you.